principles that are designed in this document and how it is set up is centered around this one fact only, Pareto's principle. I have given you roughly around 59-60 documents and I'm compiling everything from the same material. I'm not giving you any new gyan here. Okay. So when you're talking about a question solving process, I am saying these are the various chronological steps that I want you to take. So whenever you're solving a question, let's say multi-statement question, always go in the direction given here. Firstly, if there is any extreme word, be careful about it. Okay? I'm not suggesting any shortcut technique or I'm not suggesting any elimination patterns here. Not yet. Just common sense approach. Whenever you are going through the PYQ practice, I want you to take this approach. So, cause effect is one area where most of you are going wrong. Economics, environment, geography, science and tech. In the order of confusion for students, this is the order. So relatively less errors are made in S&T because of the superficial level or the ease of questions. But because of the complication involved in the options of economics, you are trying to invent new scenarios and you are making more mistakes here. So what do you mean by this mismatch filter that I gave here? Let's say, for example, I'll give you a question on travelers. For example, Gupta period, which Chinese traveler came? Okay, I'll ask the same question in a different way. Which Chinese traveler spoke about the society of Guptas? Or I'll tell who are all the people who spoke about Guptas. The general assumption is that it is Fahin. It is right. But is Fahin the only person? Hyun Sang. Hyun Sang in his work Siyuki. That person wrote about the genealogy of various kingdoms. There is one fact that connects the two kingdoms and the two travelers. Can you tell me what is that area of importance in current affairs? Nalanda University. For example, Kumaragupta established Nalanda University somewhere around 427 AD. Much later, this person came. So if I ask a question saying where I am trying to mismatch between these two, I'll say during the Gupta period, a Chinese traveler, Hyun Sang, visited the court of Chandragupta II or Chandragupta Vikramaditya. So this is a mismatch of timeline, mismatch of organization, mismatch of the very purpose it is trying to solve. So this is one area where most people are going wrong. How to get it right? Always have a clarity on some things. Definitions, purpose, and mechanism. Whenever you are reading any topic, these three things should be clearly, third, fourth, and fifth should be read together. This is a focus of revision. Whenever you are reading any topic, mismatching is one area, cause effect is one more area, mechanism, confusion. These three areas are what you should revise first. In which subjects? Economy, environment, geography, because these are the low hanging fruits. Okay. Then afterwards, classification. For example, this is relevant in science and tech, and environment. So whenever you have a two categories, the other day we were talking about science and tech, right? Whether solely depending on the speed basis, can you call a missile as a hypersonic missile? No. You should also focus on the purpose. So the basis of this classification, you should have a clarity while revising. Most of your questions, no matter how difficult they are surrounded on the basis of this same metrics only. So these are the first areas where you have to revise. Let's not even get into the test strategy, elimination options, none of them. Okay. After this is done, then you will see some areas where UPSC is biased towards. Say, for example, the topics that we are discussing in this document. You see patterns. For example, whenever a question on Gandhi, Vijayanagara, or let's say inflation targeting, banking and monetary policy, some repetitive keywords will be there, or let's say European Union. Always see the bias. If whatever patterns you observed in the previous year questions come again here, I want you to apply the same logic. Okay, this is the UPSC bias that we are talking about. So we will have to discuss all of this in the respective classes, but I wanted to give you the overall schedule for revision in the going days. Then this concept of minimization and maximization. Again, this three will be this 3, 6, 7 and 8 are based on the patterns. No trick, nothing. Just patterns of how questions are designed. So a lot of students are making a mistake on the basis of classification of a technology, of a term. For example, drones. When you're talking about drones, drone is simply put an unmanned aerial vehicle. It can deliver, it can attack, it can carry, multiple functions it can do. On what basis are you classifying something? Let's say a simple technology like drone. You should be able to identify the basis of that classification, and that will be dependent on your methodology. So whenever you are by-hearting any information, always focus on the mechanism of classification. And finally, once you have a clarity on all these tools available, only then you should decide whether you can skip or attempt. A lot of people ask me 50-50 how to approach this. So let's say A, B, C, D. You are eliminating, let's say a single statement questions are there, A, B, C, D. You have to choose one. You are eliminating two options on the basis of a memory that you already had. You are now stuck between B and C. So when we give an advice that 50-50 should be definitely attempted, what we are trying to say is between these two, one of them will be the answer, and you have to use whatever logic you think is right to eliminate the third option also. Two are based on memory, one is based on certain assumption. If that assumption is right, you will get the answer right. If the assumption is wrong, in the mock test, you will learn why that assumption is wrong. So test taking strategy depends on the ability to make things better in terms of fine tuning your logic. So you have a certain assumption X. Unless and until you take a test, you will neither make it right or wrong. Okay? Unless you have this, you will never be able to take a decision. This is what I wanted to remind. So you have to pass through this multiple steps. Next up. How about the total schedule we have? So how am I designing this? Again, on the basis of the Pareto principle that I always suggest. Every year, if you take a look at the notification, there are 7 topics in the notification. And all of those topics will have equal weightage. Let's say 14 questions. Okay. Unless and until you get the basics right in most of these topics, you are never going to clear this exam. The basics will come in every topic on the patterns that you see already. The Pareto's principle here will come from just 6 topics, 80% of the questions. So if you are getting a mechanism based question wrong in economy, and if you think economy is your strength, first consolidate this. Get the definitions right on these. That should be your first priority. Easiest area is economy. Provided you already studied it and revised it once. This is a topic where you have to solve questions. Again, when I'm saying solve questions, again, PYQs only. Once PYQs are done, if you are feeling that you are weak in this area, go towards UPSC other exams like CA, PF, CDS, etc. Next, polity, it is Article 1 to 51A followed by Parliament. If you do this 2 chapters, I think nearly 35% to 55% of your questions will be right. Apart from this, we also discuss the criminal justice system where you can expect more updates. Also, I told you that in the exam, whatever was asked in the mains exam was being asked in the prelims. So, in the previous year questions of mains, if there are any constitutional law based questions, please pay attention to those. Alright. Finally, if all these topics are over, you can move towards fringe areas like, let's say, Lok Adalat or any Consumer Protection Act, which we covered already in our current affair modules. So 70% of the marks in the polity come from these areas, the very basic areas. And here, in the end of every chapter in Lakshmikant, let's say for example, apart from the concepts, there are certain memory-based issues. Let's say, when you're talking about amendments, the latest trend is, in the footnotes of the amendments chapter, there are some nuances. Let's say, X amendment gave rise to something. So you can expect a match the following kind of a question, and which amendment gave rise to what? Or a multi-statement question where the amendment numbers will be swapped and the subject matter. So in the footnotes of Lakshmikant, I want you to revise this amendment procedures. You can expect a question in this area. Then the 5th and the 6th schedule areas. After this is over. Especially in the 6th schedule, given the Northeast insurgency issues and the Manipur conflict. In environment, my first pick this time would be pollutants. Whatever pollution based topics we discussed, most importantly from World Health Organization, whatever we discussed in the previous classes and the notes given to you, please go through that. Then latest COP summits, COP summit, Belém package, etc. We discussed this. The notes is already given to you. And also the theme of decarbonization, and also all the updates in terms of the updates in terms of the carbon as a theme. All the updates, I've placed it in that document. I want you to go through that document also. Now, when it comes to science and tech in our modules, I've divided it into some basics. Say for example, once you understand the cell biology basics, you can solve at least 50% of the biotech questions just by knowing the basics. And I request you to go back to that cell biology and basic biotech based questions. Most of them will come from there. And material technology. The document on material tech will have some concepts which can be used in your, let's say, defense. Today, when we are talking about the 5th generation aircraft, the difference in a 4.5 generation and 5th generation will come in the level of stealth. We discussed this in the previous week. So just by focusing on these crops, 70% of the questions will be coming. And whatever defense as well as space related updates I gave to you, that will cover everything that is needed. Science and tech questions, don't over analyze the patterns and don't over engineer the options through elimination techniques. Go by the concepts and use these elimination techniques, which will be taking up in the subsequent classes, only as a last resort. It's like the Brahmastra, like I told you. Once this Pareto map of the exam, which I think will give you access to almost 60 marks with just 10% effort. This areas, unless and until they are completed and revised and mastered along with PYQs, you have no right to even look at the current affairs, because you will not clear the exam if you get them wrong, these topics. So how do I want your daily schedule to look like? Let's say you're starting at 6. You can adjust your schedule accordingly. A lot of you asked me for a specific schedule. So the block 1 will definitely go towards static topics. Okay. There is a topics row in the next pages that I'll show. I gave you a detailed line by line delineation of which topics to study from every day on a daily basis. Then you have a second block for revision. So here you have to focus on the themes and traps that UPSC can lay. This is for quick active recall. This is for focusing on something that will require you to slow down and think, observe the patterns. So do it quickly. This will give you confidence. Do this as a practice. This will give you clarity. Confidence and clarity both are important. So some people might have a practice of going through the current affairs or going through headlines to recall your memory. If you are that kind of a person, use this slot for current affairs. But in my opinion, this is the slot where you have to take your marks. Or I would say switch this 9 to 11, you fix the test and immediately take a break, and 11:30 to 1 you can do your second revision block in 1.5 hours. After that, take your lunch break and come back and analyze. This is the most important thing for the day. Why am I asking you for analysis here? Post lunch session, most of you will be drowsy. And unless and until your mind is actively engaged in the activity, and unless there is a deadline for that, you will keep on postponing that analysis. So this is the area where I want you to do that error analysis. Now, here is where patterns, decoding, etc. can happen. Again, this should be done in PYQs. How to do that pattern decoding, how to practice it, we will have next session. In the night time, I want you to sleep by 10 o'clock, but up to you. You can fix your schedules accordingly. If you work along with the circadian rhythm, if you work along with law of nature, it would be good for you, but it's your prerogative. So any list, let's say polity has, let's say for example, list of features in parliamentary system, or list of national parks, list of wetlands, which requires continuous rote memorization, I would say use AI and create flashcards. Continuously in the night hour just before sleeping. This is actually proven. Before sleeping, if you do the flashcard memorization, it will really stick well in your memory in the long term. That's why this flashcards thing, I would want you to do it in the last minute. That is in the last hour of the day. Then I gave you how to log your errors. So I divided it into all these categories. So you did not know the fact, push it into your flashcards. You don't know how to approach wrong assumption, then you have to keep a separate Excel sheet. I would say economics, geography, history, so on and so forth. Divide them chapter wise and write this wrong assumptions chapter wise or theme wise. This should be the first area of revision in your last minute. From May 10th to May, whenever is the exam, May 24th. May 24th, right? So thus that 14 days, this category B is where you can't afford to make mistakes. So revise that Excel sheet very carefully. Now whenever you are making a mistake, this one, correct, incorrect, confusion, you can't really do much about it. Make sure that you are not doing that mistake. Take a pen. This is the area where you can avoid those mistakes. Most avoidable one. Then guessed and lost, negative marks. Why are you doing it? The answer is most likely your feeling. I felt this can be the answer. Don't have anything that comes from your feelings. There should be an assumption, it is right or wrong, whatever it is, or a fact. If that assumption is right, it can be called as a logic. If it is wrong, it can be learnt as a lesson. Or if it is a fact, push to code A and take it to flashcards. Revise them multiple times. So phase 1, like we are doing the science and tech and environment part right now. Highest returns on the time spent in this 10 days you will have from science and tech and environment because of the ability to take logical guesses with minimum content. So whatever the concepts you need for taking that logical guess are already given to you. Go through those classes multiple times. Don't go for random materials. Because no matter how much you study, you will still get newer questions, newer topics. Okay? So please, there is one area where you might still be slightly hesitant. That is species in news, national parks. For this kind of memory-based topics, we will have one session somewhere in the middle, focusing on how to use your memory hacks as well as the elimination techniques, but only after the first phase of marks and the consolidation is over. If I give it now, I think a lot of people will be bothered about memorizing them at this hour. No matter how much you do, you will still have to revise them. Okay, once we finish this, you can take marks. Like I told you, we will have many marks. We can go forward and apply the logics that we have learnt in those marks. So you have multiple phases like this, and as you can see in this document, I've given a day-wise areas of high importance. I've given you what are the traps and what are the marks that I want you to take, and also I've shown how to approach each topic. I've used our notes only to guide you here. So this is the revision strategy that I was talking about, which you will be getting. If you have any doubts, you can ask me now about the revision strategy. Otherwise, this will be it. And regarding the way ahead for other important areas, small revision series, I'll have to see the response of the other students, and if needed, I'll pitch in. Otherwise, I'll let you know what is the way forward for this classes. I just wanted to update about this and how to use this document. I hope this is clear. And you had a doubt on the schedule, you had a doubt on how to approach what topics in what direction. The entire document is given here. You can take this. Sorry? Any? CSAT, okay. CSAT, I would say ideally towards the um, end of the day or post lunch. If you are not taking a mock on that day, go take that CSAT practice session. Post lunch sessions, you will be high on glucose. Your body will have good energy reserves. So all the energy should be used for your mental activity. Okay. So that's it from my side. Is there anything that you need from me? Any help that will make your preparation even more streamlined? I'm more than happy to do it for you. That's it. Chalo.